Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Alexis Conason, and thank you for joining me again as we are going to be talking today a little bit about meditation and the role of mindfulness meditation in mindful eating. So for those of you who don't know me, again, I'm Dr. Alexis Conason. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I'm in private practice here in New York City, and I specialize in working with people with different types of overeating disorders and body image concerns, and some people who are also having difficulty with sexual functioning and issues around sex. And a lot of the work that I do is based on mindfulness meditation and mindful eating. So I found this to be just a really powerful tool to help my clients really radically change not only their relationship with food, but also their relationship with themselves on a very deep level. So I think meditation is such a powerful tool. It's one of the, in my opinion, one of the most powerful tools that we have to really improve our emotional and our physical well-being. And it ties in with so many other things that are kind of foundational for shifting our relationship around food and body, including increasing self-compassion, increasing acceptance, it all, increasing awareness of what's going on with our bodies. Like all of that is enabled by mindfulness meditation. So I'm really excited that we're going to be talking today all about mindfulness meditation and its role in mindful eating. And if you have any questions, feel free to write them in the comments section, and I'm happy to answer them live. And if you're here live, I'd love to know that you're here. Please say hello and get involved in the discussion. So I do have some questions that were asked ahead of time, and I'll start out with those, but if anybody wants to ask anything live, I will be prioritizing those questions, so feel free to, again, just kind of write them in the comment box, and I have that open on my screen. Hi, Judy. Thanks for joining me. So let's get started. And I would love to know also, for those of you who are watching live, like, who has a meditation practice? Do you guys already have a meditation practice, or is this something that's pretty new to you? We hear a lot about meditation. We hear a lot about mindfulness, but often it gets kind of disconnected from a formal meditation process. So, many of us are kind of familiar with the idea of mindfulness, but we haven't necessarily experienced what that means. So I would actually love to start off with just a very brief meditation practice. I promise it's going to be about just maybe like a minute or two. And I want to keep it short just to really underscore that, like, we don't have to make meditation so complicated. It doesn't have to be done in a ashram or a monastery. We don't have to go to a special meditation center, even though there's a lot of wonderful meditation centers, especially here in New York City where I live. But the wonderful thing about meditation is that it's just about becoming present in the here and now, and that can be done without any tools, without any special props, without any special location. So if we start off, I'm going to set our timer for just, just about a minute or two. I'll do 2 minutes because by the time I get it started, so I'm just loading up, I use Insight Timer. That is a meditation app that you can, is accessible on your iPhone, and probably for a lot of different, devices as well. And you can set, if you can see here, they have a option that's just the timer. You can set it for however long you want to meditate for, and it will do a special meditation bell. So I'm going to start us for a 2-minute meditation. And there's our bell to get us started. So start off just wherever you're sitting. Start to develop a straight, upright posture. Again, wherever you're sitting, you don't have to be on a meditation cushion. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just wherever you are, take a pause and start to bring your awareness to your breathing. You can close your eyes if you want to, or you can leave them open. It doesn't really matter. If you decide to leave your eyes open, you can leave them with just a soft downward gaze at a point ahead of you. And again, mindfulness is really just the process of bringing our awareness to the present moment. So focusing all of your awareness on your breathing. You might notice the sensation of the air as it enters and exits through your body. You might find a point in your body where you're most easily aware of the breath, perhaps at your nostrils, at your belly, at your throat. And then noticing what the mind is doing. So noticing if our mind wanders while we're meditating. And if you meditate for any length of time, really the mind will wander, because this is the nature of the mind to wander. It doesn't mean that you're meditating wrong. Just simply notice what the mind is doing and bring your awareness back to your breathing. And you might also take this as an opportunity to check in with yourself. How are you doing today? Anything going on in your body? And we're going to bring that practice to a close, just so you have an idea of how quick and easy meditation can be. We all just meditated together, and thank you for joining me in that practice. So, again, like lots of people think they don't have time to have a meditation practice. I have a 3-minute meditation that you can find on my website, drconneson.com. And that's a great place to start. It's just 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever it is, to bring your awareness into the present moment. And now I'm going to talk about why I think that's important. And I'm going to go to some of the questions that people have asked about, what does meditation have to do with mindful eating? And why are we teaching meditation when we're talking about our relationship with food and our body? And there are a lot of mindful eating programs that actually don't talk a lot about meditation. And I think that's a little bit wild, because mindfulness, mindful eating is based on mindfulness meditation. But I think as mindfulness has gotten so trendy and become kind of really used to mean a lot of things that aren't necessarily what the core of mindful eating is about, it's become a little bit diluted. And we're seeing, a lot of diet programs and weight loss programs are saying that they're doing mindful eating, which, to me, mindfulness and mindful eating are really about accepting ourselves as we are. So I don't see how that's so consistent with Weight Watchers or any of those diet programs that are kind of encouraging us to rely on this external cues to guide our eating. And again, I don't know if there's any people who are currently on Weight Watchers or know what they're doing more specifically with mindful eating. I thankfully am not a Weight Watchers member. I gave that up quite a few years ago. And I don't know specifics of what their program is, but I'm curious if they're teaching meditation. My hunch is probably not. So again, why meditate when we are working on our relationship with food? So some of the questions that I got are, how is meditation a big part of the mindful eating process? And how is meditation tied to food issues? So I'm going to start with those two questions because I think they're really important. I'm going to answer them together. I think they're very similar. And mindful eating is about being fully aware and present in our body and in our eating experiences. So it's really about being present in the here and now with, what's happening in our body and what's happening with our eating. And of course, this is really already, just by doing that, a very monumental shift in how most of us are eating, because most of us are very disconnected from our bodies, especially if we have conflict around our bodies, and especially if we don't feel good about our bodies. We tend to tune out. Such a great quote from, I don't know if anybody's been watching Dietland, the new TV show that premiered on Monday night on AMC. It's fabulous. If anybody's not watching it, you really should check it out. It's just like a great, very body positive, fat accepting program, and it's so refreshing to see on television. But I don't want to detour too much. But she makes the main character, who's a woman living in a larger body, who is doing everything she can to try to lose weight. And she says something like, my body is just a vehicle to carry my head around. And I love that quote because I think it speaks to how disconnected we feel when we do have conflict around our body, and when we're kind of in that place of not accepting ourselves. We tend to view our body as just kind of this burden to deal with, to kind of drag through the day as we, get where our mind needs to go. So there's really like this mind-body disconnection. And mindfulness is about closing that gap so that we are actually, connected with our body and really present and listening and hearing what our body is telling us, because our body is giving us all kinds of really important signals throughout the day. So we start to foster that with the formal meditation practice. So when we did our practice, just the little 2-minute meditation that we did just now, you might have started to notice things that are coming up in your body that you weren't aware of before. Perhaps it was a little, hunger pang. Perhaps it was feeling really full, if you just finished a meal. Perhaps it was a feeling of discomfort, a feeling of pain, or a lot of emotions coming up. And all of this is really important, really valuable information that we're just not taking advantage of throughout the day. So our body's sending us all this important information, all this important cues, and we're just ignoring it. And the same thing goes when we're eating. So we tend to eat in a very disconnected way, and our body's giving us signals about how much to eat, what to eat, when to stop eating. And we're kind of out there lost without a roadmap because we're not utilizing our body's own signals. And that's why we feel many of us feel like we have such a hard time trusting ourselves, or that our body's going to lead us astray. And we turn to things like diet plans or programs or experts to tell us what to eat, because we're not, it feels like we're, in the middle of the woods without a compass, because we're not listening to the guidance from our own body. So mindfulness, the formal meditation practice, is what helps build the muscles so that we're able to be more present with our body throughout the day. The mindfulness meditation also has an emphasis on being present and aware with a sense of non-judgmental observation. So we kind of just observe in the meditation practice, we observe what our mind and body is doing in a non-judgmental, kind of curious, gentle, and kind way. And that's really unusual for many of us who spend so much of our lives filled in self-judgment and criticism and just kind of beating ourselves up, and everything we do is wrong. I mean, this can happen even with meditation, that we start to think, am I meditating correctly? Am I not doing a good job of this? I mean, I hear so many people who say they're interested in doing meditation, but they're not a good meditator. And, I think it just speaks to the harshness that we have towards ourselves. And one of the goals of mindfulness meditation is to sit with ourselves in a way that is, compassionate and curious without all of the judgment that we put on ourselves. So the formal meditation practice can, help us do that. Again, the meditation practice, it's not necessarily just meditating for the sake of meditating, but it also, helps build the muscle to be more aware and present throughout our entire day. Just like we might go to the gym to build build up our muscles, like our arm muscles. We're not necessarily doing bicep curls just to see how many we can do. We do the bicep curls so that when we need to use that muscle at some point during the day, it's strong and we're able to lift things or carry things or do what we need to do. So I think of the formal meditation practice as similar, that it builds the muscle so that we can tune into our bodies when we need it the most. And part of that is practicing, just like at as a standard part of your daily routine, practicing formal mindfulness meditation. And again, using like the muscle, the muscle analogy, we don't want to start working to build the muscle right when we need it, because that doesn't make sense. We want our muscles to already be strong so we can call on them when we need it. So, the time to start the mindfulness practice is not when you're midway through a binge, with your, standing in front of the freezer with a pint of ice cream. Like, that's going to be the most difficult time to be mindful of our eating. We want to start building the practice when there's low stress, just kind of like a normal part of our daily routine. I mean, of course, we all have stresses, but like, you don't want to start in the most difficult situation. And that's why, again, I think it's important to just have it be part of our standard daily routine, the way that you might, brush your teeth each day or take a shower or eat breakfast. So, again, building a meditation practice, it doesn't have to be so complicated. If you feel strapped for time, really start with like 3 minutes a day and see how you can integrate that 3 minutes into your schedule. Once you have that 3 minutes integrated into your schedule, again, I have a guided meditation you can listen to on my website if you're interested in that 3-minute meditation. Then you can start to think about, maybe expanding it to 5 minutes. How does that feel? Maybe expanding a little bit longer, but you want to get at least a brief period into your daily routine. I think, it's important to get that brief period into your daily routine and then start building it up from there. Because if we say, okay, how am I going to fit, 20 minutes into my daily routine, that can feel really overwhelming. And, the other obstacle that I think that people have to doing meditation is that it's hard to sit with ourselves. We have so much conflict and we're so invested in the idea of trying to get away from ourselves. And that's what, I think so much of our culture is about, is things to take us away, distract ourselves from being with us. Because so many of us, I really think that the real epidemic that we have going on in our culture is one of self-hatred, that we are so harsh and judgmental and critical of ourselves that who wants to be with ourselves when we think that we are a really kind of lousy companion? So, again, meditation is hard. It can be, a lot of resistances can come up when we think about creating space for ourselves to just sit in a non-judgmental, compassionate way. So, meditation, just to sum up that question, meditation, I think, is tied to food issues in that it sets the foundation for how we can change our relationship with food, because it is building the muscle of, how we're going to be able to become more present with ourselves in our eating experiences, in our body, and in our lives overall. I mean, I think one thing that I notice when people start to do meditation through my program, which is really focused around changing our relationship with food and our body, is that it just integrates into all different areas of your life. So mindfulness, for people who aren't aware, has become really popular, and I think for good reason. It's very popular and trendy right now because research has shown that it is effective in treating a really wide range of different types of psychological and just kind of life issues. So it's being used to treat depression, anxiety, stress management, chronic pain. That's actually what it was originally developed for, chronic pain. And they're using it in a lot of corporate settings to increase productivity and worker effectiveness, and even in the parenting world, to be a more mindful parent, there's books about being a more mindful athlete, that it can improve athletic performance. And the amazing thing is that it's the same meditation. So when you start to meditate, it really, is can create changes in a more global way. And I think part of the reason that it's like the same meditation is being used to treat all of these different things is because it's not only about alleviating symptoms, but it really is kind of changing the way that we relate to ourselves. And when we change the way that we relate to ourselves, that is speaking to kind of a core underlying shift that happens that affects many different areas of our life, right? So the shift kind of starts from this core fundamental place, and that's the mindfulness practice and, becoming more aware and compassionate and accepting of ourselves. And we see the effects of it kind of just radiate out into all different areas of our lives. So, and into the world, because we start to relate not only with ourselves differently, but with other people differently. So that's some of why I think mindfulness meditation is so important, and I really see it as an essential role of mindful eating. Like, I don't think that we can truly be practicing mindful eating without having a meditation practice. And there's actually some research that shows that in mindful eating programs, the piece that really determined the amount of change that people had in terms of improving their behaviors around, their eating behaviors, and was the amount of time spent meditating. So that's, to me, that's like really powerful research just showing that it really is about the meditation practice that's creating some shift. It's not just about turning off the television and smelling the food and going through the exercises of mindful eating, but there is something about developing that meditation practice that is improving our eating and our relationship with our body and ourselves that can be measured in this research study. So, I think that's pretty cool. So some of the other questions that I got here about meditation is there a mindfulness program that you would recommend for someone new to meditation? So if you are new to meditation and you're interested in developing a, practice, a daily meditation practice, there's a few different things that you can do. I love the apps because I think it makes it so accessible. There's just a ton of great apps out there, and we always have our phones with us. I think that's part of the distraction epidemic that we have happening in our culture, but we can use this tool for another purpose, and that is to actually not tune out from ourselves, but to tune in to ourselves. So like I used in the practice we did just now, I like the Insight Timer. And Judy, I see here, uses Insight as well. I think it's just a great tool and a great app. It's free. I think it's free. And it's kind of, I think of the Insight Timer as like the YouTube of meditation, because anybody can upload their own meditations up there. And it just is kind of a huge, there's just a huge amount of different types of guided meditations you can do. And you can choose which type of meditation you want to do by time. So if you have like 5 minutes, you could do, there's a 5-minute category, you could do 10 minutes. Or if you want to focus the meditation, so if you want to do a general meditation of breath, or if you want to do meditation, loving kindness meditation, which is a compassion-based meditation that I really like to do. There's just a lot of different options. Now, the downside of having a lot of different options is that the quality can be variable. So I like to stick with guided meditations from some of the meditation instructors that I really enjoy and respect, but I'm sure everybody has their favorites. But some of my favorites that are on the Insight Timer are Jack Kornfield, Sharon Salzberg. They both have quite a few free meditations available. And there's a ton of other great people as well. So if you have your favorites, please write in and let me know. There are also programs that are really designed to help you, help the beginner meditator develop a practice. So kind of teaching you everything that you need to know. I think Headspace focuses on that. I'm less familiar with Headspace. So again, if anyone else has experience with these apps, please jump in and let me know. Headspace, I think, has more of like a program that you can follow. I haven't used that one myself, but I know a lot of people like that. And then if you sign up for my free 30-day, the anti-diet plan course, which you can do on my website, drconnison.com, I provide instruction on how to develop a meditation practice, including the position you want to have your body in, what kind of chair is best to sit in, and how to really like integrate the meditation practice into your daily life. So, I might be a little bit biased, but I think that's a good place to start, as well as all of these apps. And Happify also has some apps, has some tracks about how to develop a meditation practice. So I worked with them for those of you who don't know, I worked with Happify to develop a mindful eating track, but they also have tracks that are just about kind of like the beginner's guide to meditation or how to develop a meditation practice. But the main things that I believe is that meditation should be accessible. It doesn't have to be about finding, like some special sacred room to meditate in. I often meditate here in my office. I just have a meditation cushion because that's how I'm comfortable, but often I also just do it in a chair. You don't need to have a cushion. You don't need to have like a special chair. You don't need to have a shrine. You don't need to have any of that stuff that feels so overwhelming. And often we get so lost in trying to find the perfect time and place and way to meditate that we never get around to actually meditating. So I always say like the best time and place to meditate is the time and place that you're meditating. Wherever, whenever that is, whether it's on the subway, in the bathroom, at your desk at work, at home, it really doesn't matter. There's no special benefit to meditating like on the floor versus in a chair or anything like that. Hi, Laura. Laura's just writing in with a recommendation, and this is actually something that is definitely on my to-read list. I haven't read it yet, but she's recommending Dan Harris's book, 10% Happier, as a great place to start for someone who wants to learn about meditation. Thanks for that recommendation, Laura. I've heard really great things about Dan Harris's book. I haven't gotten around to reading it yet, but it's definitely on my to-read list, or I should say these days my to-listen list, because I'm a huge fan of Audible and I listen to way more books than I'm reading. But I also hear he has a really great podcast. So that's a nice way to get started as well for people wanting to learn more about meditation. And I'm just going to take one last question real quickly here, which is, I think, an interesting question. So someone asked, they say, I struggle to meditate, but I've read that activities like coloring have a similar effect on your brain through relaxation, letting go of stray thoughts, etc. Have you heard anything similar? So I'm not familiar with any research on this. If anyone is, please feel free, again, to jump in, about the connection between mindfulness and these other, like there's a million, I have actually 2 of them. Someone bought me for a gift, like mindful coloring books. And, there's a lot of thought that like there's different activities that kind of bring us into states of mindfulness. Now, my take is that it's a little bit different than a formal meditation practice. So these are, activities that can bring us into the here and now. And I think whenever we can have a mindful activity or mindful moment, that's awesome. And there's definitely a great place for relaxation and doing these kinds of, coloring. And mindfulness we can bring to really anything, cooking, reading a bedtime story to our kids. It doesn't, it's all can be done mindfully. And I think that those are really great mindful experiences. Is it the same as meditation, as a formal meditation practice? I think it's a little bit different. And I think that there's a place for both. So I would really encourage you, again, like for someone who's struggling to meditate, make it easy for yourself. Start out with a 3-minute meditation wherever, whenever you are, and, just try to integrate it from there. And if you're running into obstacles, I always say, like when we're running into roadblocks, we don't want to just hit the same wall again and again and again. If you're running into obstacles, take a step back and look at what the resistances are that are coming up, like what's making it difficult for you to meditate. Because I do think that there's a power and there's something about the formal meditation practice that I don't think again, I don't know research on this, but my guess would be that it's a little bit different than those kinds of activities like mindful cooking or coloring or, other kinds of mindfulness-based activities. But do it all if we can. More mindfulness, the better. People always say, but if I'm mindful all the time, then I won't be able to plan for the future. Or, like, I have never had the problem of someone being too mindful, where they're too much in the present moment, that they're not, planning ahead, or they're just kind of lost in the present moment. Like, I've been, doing this work for almost 10 years, working with mindfulness in one way or another, and I have never had that experience. We're talking about going from being in our heads and being not present like 100% of the time, to maybe if we do a mindfulness, if we really work to develop a mindfulness practice, we'll be mindful maybe, like, I don't know, 2% of the time, 5% of the time. You still got a lot of time to plan and do other things. So I think wherever you can get those mindful moments in is really going to just, be to our benefit, to give ourselves a break from all of the chaos that typically is swirling in our head, and to be able to look at it in a different way that's a little bit more observant and reflective, rather than just being lost in it and swimming in it. So we are just about out of time for today. I want to thank everybody for joining me. If you have any questions, or if there's topics that you want to hear about for our upcoming Facebook Lives, I'm here every week on Wednesdays at noon, and I would love to be talking about things that you really want to hear about. So if you have a topic or questions, or anything that you want to bring up, please let me know. You can respond to me on Facebook. You can email me, info@drconneson.com. You can find my contact information on my website. And if you haven't signed up for my free 30-day course, I really encourage you to do so. The first session, like the very first week, is all about developing a meditation practice. And the reason that I have that as the first week is because I really do think that sets the foundation for changing our relationship with food. So that is like step number one. So you can sign up for that course on my website, drconneson.com. And I look forward to seeing everybody next week. Thanks for joining me.